Unit 6 Review Question 34. Use the decimal grid to shade the addends of the addition problem, then combine your addends in a new grid to find the sum. So here's our problem, 0.47. I already shaded the addends, so this is 4/10, so 4 columns and 7/100ths, and 0.09 or 9/100ths. Now adding means to combine, so we want to combine these shaded regions in a new grid and compare it to the original unit. So first I'll write the first number, 4/10 or 4 columns, completely filled. And now we have 7/100ths. Now I want to combine or add on these 9/100ths. And I'm going to do this in a different color just so we can see how it's adding on. So here's 3/100ths. I want to fill up this column. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 more hundredths. So this blue portion combined equals the 9/100ths. And this total amount shaded is our result. Notice, even though this is an orange, we have 5 complete columns filled, so that's 5/10, or 0.5. And in this row, we have 6/100ths, which is 0.06. So combined, our sum is 0.56. Let's look at the next one. Add the decimals by aligning the decimal points and adding. So I'm going to copy the first number, 35.13, and as I copy the second, I'm going to make sure the place values line up with the first. So 200, 4 is in the tens, 5 is in the ones. There's my decimal. Now 600, 6 is in the tenths, 7 is in the hundredths, 2 is in the thousands. Okay, so when we say align the decimal points, they have to align, but all the corresponding numbers also need to align. I'm going to indicate that it's addition, and I'm going to put a 0 placeholder here. Now we're going to work from right to left, adding just as if we would if they were whole numbers, but when we get to the decimal point spot, we put the decimal there. So 0 and 2 is 2. 3 plus 7 is 10, so 0, carry the 1. 6, 7, 8. Now I'm going to bring down the decimal point. 5 and 5 is 10, so 0, carry the 1. 7 plus 1 is 8, and here we just have a 2. So our end result is 280.802. Let's look at the next one. Place the numbers in the place value chart and then use the chart as an aid to subtract the numbers. So now instead of using a grid, we're going to use a place value chart to help us set this up. So 45.216 minus 14.78. So notice I place them appropriately in the chart, aligning the decimal points, and we are going to subtract. So I'm going to put a 0 placeholder in here. So subtracting the thousands, 6 minus 0 is 6. Now going to the hundredths, I have 1/100th minus 8/100ths. We don't want to deal with negative numbers, so instead we borrow. So I'm going to borrow a tenth. Okay, and then 10/10 is 1/10 is 10/100ths. So now I have 11/100ths minus 8/100ths is 3/100ths. Now 1/10 minus 7/10, well, again, I don't want negative numbers, so I'm going to borrow a 1. And 1/1 is 10/10, so I'm going to add 10/10 onto the 1/10. So 11/10 minus 7/10 is 4/10. 4 ones minus 4 ones is 0 ones, and 4/10 minus 1/10 is 3/10. So our difference is 30.436. Let's look at the next one. Subtract the decimals by aligning the decimal points and subtracting. So here we don't have any aids, so we have to make sure we set this up correctly. I always try to space my numbers out a little bit more. So 168.2, that's our first number. Now I want to subtract 40.977. So 4 is in the tens place, so I'm going to line it up with a 6. 0 is in the ones, then the decimal. Then we have 9 under the 2 in the tens place, and 7, 7. Okay, so we're going to indicate subtraction. We're going to put the bar. Okay. Now, notice we don't just drop these 7s down. There are actually zeros here that we're going to add in as placeholders, so we see when we subtract that 0 minus 7 is negative 7. We need to borrow. So it looks like we have to double borrow. So when we try to borrow for the thousandths, the hundredths is 0. So I'm going to need to borrow from the tenths. So I borrow 1/10, which is 10 hundredths. Now I'm going to borrow a hundredth and give that 100th to the thousandths, which is 10 thousandths. Now we can subtract. 10 minus 7 is 3. 9 minus 7 is 2. Now here we have 1 minus 9, so we're going to need to borrow again. I'm going to borrow 1 from the ones, and that gives me 10 tenths plus this tenth is 11 tenths. Now we can subtract. 11 minus 9 is 2. Bring down the decimal point so you keep track of it. 7 minus 0 is 7. 6 minus 4 is 2. 1 minus 0 is 1. So our end result is 127 and 223 thousandths, or 0.223. Let's look at the next one. Use the rules for signed numbers to add or subtract the decimals. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Here we have addition, and we have a positive number and a negative number. Okay, their absolute values, since we have lots of space, I'm going to write them here. This was positive, its absolute value is 0.9. Negative 2.34's absolute value is positive 2.34. Okay, so since the signs are different, we want to subtract the smaller number from the larger number. Now notice 2.34 is larger, so I want 2.34 minus 0.9. So let's go ahead and subtract. 4 minus 0 is 4. I need to borrow. 13 minus 9 is 4. Bring down the decimal. 1 minus 0 is 1. Okay, so there were different signs, so we subtracted. We got the result of the subtraction is 1.44. We only need to determine, is this answer positive or negative? Well, the number with the larger absolute value was negative, so that means our result is negative. Okay, so all of the same rules that we used before, except now our addition or subtraction is going to be with negative number, or with decimal numbers, excuse me. Okay, here we have a negative and a positive again. Okay, so even though we're adding, that means we need to subtract the numbers. Let's look at their absolute values. So 6.72, 8.73. Okay, this number is larger, so I'm going to subtract 8.73 minus 6.72. And our result is 1, 0, and 2.01. So now we know the difference is 2.01. Is the sign positive or negative? Well, the larger absolute value was 8.73. It was positive, so our result is positive. So we won't add a positive sign there. We'll just leave it as is. Okay. Now for this one, we have a subtraction problem. Well, let's start by rewriting it as addition. So we change the subtraction to addition. Take the opposite of this number, so change this negative sign to a positive sign. Okay. And notice this ends up being a simple addition problem. Since they're both positive, we don't have to worry about any of that sign stuff. We're just going to add the numbers as is. 1 plus 8 is 9. 8 plus 1 is also 9. Bring down the decimal, and 7 plus 4 is 11. So this is our end result. So let's just circle or square our final answers, 11.99.